Hi, welcome to this Corbettmaths video. In this video, we're going to look at the video solutions to the finding the original value if you're given a fraction of an amount. So if you've been given a fraction of an amount, how to find the original value, practice questions on Corbettmaths. If you need any extra help on finding the original amount, if you're given a fraction of a quantity, go to Corbettmaths, go to the videos and worksheets section and scroll down to video number 138. And there's a dedicated video tutorial there on finding the original amount. Alternatively, you can scan this QR code. But in this video, we're going to focus on the video solutions to the practice questions, so let's get started. Okay, question number one. Question number one says a third of a number is 5. Work out the number. Well, if we had a number and we've worked out a third of it, we've divided it by 3 to get our third of it, which is 5. So if we take a third of it, which is 5, and we multiply it by 3, we can find out what the original would be. And 5 times 3 would be equal to 15. So the number would have been 15. And just to think about it, if we had 15, if we divide that by 3 and we get a third of it, that would be equal to 5. So that's it. So the number was 3. Okay, next, question number 2. Question number 2 says, I'm thinking of a number, and 3/4 of the number is 12. What was the number? Okay, so there's a certain number, we're not entirely sure what it was, and we've worked out 3/4 of it. So we've worked out 3/4 of this number, and we've got an answer of 12. So 3/4 of this number is equal to 12. And to find 3/4 of this number, we would have divided it by 4 to find a quarter, and then once we found a quarter of it, we've times it by 3, and we've got an answer of 12. So let's work backwards, because we would have divided by the bottom and times by the top. We would have divided by 4 and times by 3. So if we take our answer and divide it by 3 and times it by 4, we can find out what this number would have been. So if we take our 12 and we divide it by the top, so divide by the top, divided by 3, 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4. And now if we take our 4 and we times by the bottom, 4 times 4 is equal to 16. So that means 3/4 of 16 is 12. And let's just check that. 16 divided by 4 is 4, and then times by 3 is equal to 12. So that's it. So our number would have been 16. So yeah, so the number would have been 16. Okay, next, question number 3. So question number 3 says 4/5 of y is equal to 20. So 4/5 of y, so 4/5 of this number, of whatever y is equal to 20. And the question says to find y, to find this number. So to find 4/5 of a number, we would have divided it by 5 and then times by 4, and that would have given us 20. So let's work backwards. Let's divide by 4 and times by 5. So let's take our answer, 20, divide it by 4. 20 divided by 4 is equal to 5. Now we're going to times by the bottom. 5 times 5 is equal to 25. So 4/5 of 25 is equal to 20. And let's just check that. 25 divided by 5 is 5, times by 4 is 20. So y is equal to 25. And that's it. So the number we started with, y, is 25. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 4. Okay, so question number 4 says 3/7 of a number is equal to 24. So 3/7 of this particular number is equal to 24. We want to find out what this number was. So to find 3/7 of this number, we would have divided it by 7 to get 1/7, and then times it by 3 to get 3/7. So we would divide it by 7 and times by 3, and the answer would be 24. So let's work backwards. Let's divide by 3 and times by 7. So 24 divided by 3 is equal to 8. And then if we do 8 times 7, that's equal to 56. So that means that 3/7 of 56 is equal to 24. And let's just check that. 56 divided by 7 is 8, times by 3 is 24. So the number is 56. And that's it. Okay, our next question, question number 5. Okay, so question number 5 is a calculator question, so feel free to use a calculator for this question if you want to. I'm just going to find one. Yep, got one. And the question 5 says, if 25th of the cars in a car park are yellow, so 1 in 25, 25th of the cars in the car park are yellow, and there's 13 yellow cars in the car park, and the question says, work out the total number of cars parked in the car park. So we know that if we work out 1/25th of the grand total of number of cars in the car park, the answer is equal to 13, because 1/25 of the cars are yellow and there's 13 yellow cars. So 1/25 of the grand total is equal to 13. So we would have taken the grand total and divided it by 25, and we've got 13. So if we take 13 and we multiply that by 25, that'll tell us the grand total. So 13 multiplied by 25 is equal to 325. So there's 325 cars parked in the car park. So the answer is 325. And let's just check that. 1/25 of 325, what we divide by 25, that's equal to 13. So that would be the 13 yellow cars. So that's it, we're right. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 6. So question number 6, we've got this function machine. So we've got input, and then we work out 2/7 of the number, and that gives us the output. And the question says, work out the output if the input is 28. So if the input's 28, we're going to work out 2/7 of it, and that'll give us the output. So let's take our 28, and let's work out 2/7 of 28, and work out what that is, and that'll be the output. So to find 2/7 of a number, we divide by the bottom and times by the top. So we'll take our 28, we'll do 28 divided by the bottom, which is 7, and that's equal to 4. And then we'll times by the top, 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So the answer would be 8. So if the input is 28, the output is 8, because that's 2/7 of it, so 8. Okay, and then part B. Part B says, work out the input if the output is equal to 14. So there's an input, we don't know what it is, and if we work out 2/7 of that input, we get an output of 14. So 2/7 of this input is equal to 14. So to find 2/7 of the input, we would have divided it by 7 and times it by 2, and then we've got an answer of 14. So we're going to work backwards. We're going to take our 14, we're going to divide by the top, so we're going to divide by 2, that's equal to 7, and then we're going to times by the bottom, so 7 times 7 is equal to 49. So that means that our input would be 49, so 49 is the input. And let's just check that. If we had 49, if we work out 2/7 of 49, we would divide by the bottom, so 49 divided by 7 is equal to 7, and then times by the top is 14, so the output would be 14, so that's right. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 7. Okay, so question number 7 is a calculator question, which is quite nice, and we're told that 3/16 of a number is 7,832.5. Now I can see why it's a calculator question, and the question says calculate the number, so we want to work out what the number is. So 3/16 of, and there's a certain number, and I'm going to do a big box there just in case it's a big number or a long number, and that's equal to 7,832.5, and just make sure I write that correctly. Yep. So 13/16 of this number is 7,832.5. So we know that if we started with this number, we would have divided it by 16, got a 16th of it, and then times by 13 and got this. So let's work backwards. Let's take our 7,832.5. We'll divide by the top, so we'll divide by 13, and that's equal to 602.5. So we've divided by the top, now we're going to times by the bottom. So 602.5 multiplied by 16, and let's see what we get. And that's equal to 9,640. So the answer is 9,640. And that means, let's just check this. If we had 9,640, if we divide that by 16, we get that's equal to 602.5, and then if we times by 13, we get that's equal to 7,832.5. So yeah, that's correct. So the number we would have started with is 9,640. So that's the original. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 8. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 8. So question number 8 says there are red and yellow sweets in a bag, and 5/6 of the sweets in the bag are yellow, and there's 20 yellow sweets in the bag, and the question says how many sweets are in the bag in total. Okay, so we know that 5/6 of the sweets in the bag are yellow. So 5/6 of the grand total is equal to 20, because 5/6 of the sweets in the bag are yellow. So 5/6 of the total is equal to 20. So if we knew this number, we would divide it by 6 and times by 5, and the answer would be 20. So if we're working backwards, we're going to divide by 5 and then times by 6. We're going to divide by the top and times by the bottom. So we're going to take our 20, we're going to divide that by 5, that's equal to 4, and then we're going to do 4 times 6, and 4 times 6 is equal to 24. So that means there would have been 24 sweets in the bag. And let's just check that. 5/6 of 24, so divide by the bottom is 4, and then times by 5 would be equal to 20. So yeah, so how many sweets are there in the bag in total? The answer would be 24. If the question asked us how many red sweets there'd be 4 red sweets, because if there's 20 yellow and there's 24 sweets altogether, there'd be 4 red ones. But the question is how many sweets are there in total? So the answer is 24. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 9. So question number 9 says, Gavin wins some money in a raffle. So Gavin wins some money in the raffle, and he gives 2/3 of the money to charity. That's quite nice of him. And he saves the rest of the money. So he saves the rest of it. So he puts it in the bank or something like that. And the question says that Gavin gave £240 to charity. And the question says, how much money did Gavin save? So Gavin won some money. So he won some money to begin with, and he gave 2/3 of that money to charity. So 2/3 of the money that he won is equal to £240, because 2/3 of the money he won is how much he gave to the charity, and he gave £240 to charity. So if we knew how much money he won, we would divide it by 3 to get 1/3 of it, and then times by 2, and then the answer would be 240. So if we work backwards, if we take the 240 and divide that by 2, that's equal to 120. And then if we times by the bottom, 120 times 3 is equal to 360. That means that Gavin won £360. And let's just check that. If we have £360, if he gave 2/3 of it to the charity, that would be divided by the bottom would be 120 times by the top would be equal to £240. So he would have given £240 to charity. So that's correct. Now that's how much money he won. He won in the raffle, £360. But the question asks us how much money did he save? So he saved the rest. So if we take the £360 and take away the £240, let's see what we get. 0 take away 0 is 0, 6 take away 4 is 2, and 3 take away 2 is equal to 1. So that means that Gavin saved £120 because he gave away 240 and he saved the rest, which is 120. So he saved £120. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 10. So question number 10 says, I'm thinking of a number. So this is a number that I'm thinking of. And 1/3 of the number is 6. So 1/3 of this number is equal to 6. Okay, so 1/3 of the number I'm thinking of is equal to 6. So let's find out the number I'm thinking of to begin with. So 1/3 of this number is equal to 6. So I've taken the number I've started with, the number I'm thinking of, and I've divided it by 3 to get 1/3 of it, and that's equal to 6. So if I do 6 times 3, that's equal to 18. So the number that I started with is equal to 18. And let's just check that. 1/3 of 18 is equal to 6 because 18 divided by 3 is 6. So that means that the number I started with is 18. Now the question says work out a half of the number. So it didn't actually ask us what number I was thinking of. It's asked us to work out half of the number I was starting with, half of the number I was thinking of. So I need to take 18 and divide it by 2 to find half of it. And that's equal to 9. So half of that number is equal to 9. And that's it. So in this question, we're told 1/3 of a number is equal to 6. So we find the number by times it by 3. That's equal to 18. And then we're asked to work out half of the number. So we now then needed to divide by 2, and that's equal to 9. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 11. Okay, so question number 11, it's a bit similar to the last one, apart from being halves and thirds. We've got some of our fractions. So Ranjit is thinking of a number. We don't know what it is. That's the number he's thinking of. And we're told that 3/4 of the number, so 3/4 of Ranjit's number is equal to 360. And then we've been asked to work out 2/5 of the number. So let's find the number to begin with. So if we had knew Ranjit's number, we would divide it by the bottom, we would divide it by 4, and then we would times by 3, and we would get 360. So let's work backwards. Let's divide by the top, so let's divide by 3, and 360 divided by 3. It's a non-calculator question, so you could do 36 divided by 3 is equal to 12, and then put the 0 on, so 120. Or you could do your bus shelter method and do 360 divided by 3. How many 3's go into 3? 1. How many 3's go into 6? 2. And how many 3's go into 0? 0, so the answer would be 120. So we've divided it by the top, and now we need to times by the bottom. So 120 times 4 is equal to, well, 12 times 4 is equal to 48. So 120 times 4 would be equal to 480. So Ranjit's number was 480. And let's just check that. If Ranjit's number was 480, if we divide by the bottom, that's 120 times 3 is 360. So that's right. So Ranjit's number is 480. Now we've been asked to work out 2/5 of the number. So we now need to work out 2/5 of Ranjit's number, so 2/5 of 480, and let's see what we get. So let's take 480, we want to work out 2/5 of it, so we're going to divide by the bottom and times by the top. So 480 divided by 5. How many 5's go into 4? 0, remainder 4. How many 5's go into 48? That would be 9, remainder 3. And how many 5's go into 30? That's 6. So 1/5 of 480 is equal to 96, and then if we do 96 times the top, so 96 times 2, let's see what we get. 2 times 6 is 12, so put a 2 down, carry a 1. And 2 times 9 is equal to 18, plus 1 is 19. So the answer would be 192. So that means 2/5 of Ranjit's number is 192. And that's it. Okay, so question number 12, we're told that Jessica's making lemon cupcakes and chocolate cupcakes for a party. And we're told that 3/7 of the cupcakes are lemon. And we're told that she made 52 chocolate cupcakes. And the question says, how many cupcakes did Jessica make in total? Okay, let's have a look at this question. 3/7 of the cupcakes are lemon. Now, we were told that Jessica's making lemon and chocolate cupcakes, so she's making no other flavours, just lemon and chocolate. And if 3/7 are lemon, that means the rest of them must be chocolate. And that means it must add together to be 7/7. So that means that 4/7 of the cupcakes must be chocolate, because 3/7 are lemon, and so the rest is chocolate, so that's going to be 4/7. And we're told that she made 52 chocolate cupcakes. So that means that if she makes 4/7 of the cupcakes are chocolate, that means that 4/7 of the grand total is equal to 52, because we know that 4/7 of all the cupcakes are chocolate and she made 52 chocolate cupcakes. So that means if we knew how many cupcakes she made, we would work out 4/7 of it and we'd get 52. So we need to work backwards. So we're going to divide by the top and times by the bottom. So we're going to take our 52 and we're going to divide that by 4. And to divide by 4, we could do the Bush-Delta method. So we could do 52 divided by 4. How many 4s go into 5? 1, remainder 1. How many 4s go into 12? That's 3. So that's 13. Or you could half it and half it again, and half of it is 26 and half again is 13. So we've divided by the top. Now we just need to times by the bottom. And then we're going to take our 13 and we're going to times it by the bottom. So we're going to do 13 times 7. Now 12 times 7 will be equal to 84. So another 7 would be 91. So that would be 91. And let's just check that. 13 multiplied by 7 using our column multiplication. 7 times 3 is 21. Put a 1 down, carry a 2. And 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9, so the answer is 91. So that means that Jessica made 91 cupcakes, because we know that she made 3/7 of them are lemon, so the rest of them are chocolate, so 4/7 of the total of 91 will be equal to 52. So that means that the grand total of cupcakes she made was 91. And let's just check that. 91 divided by 7 is equal to 13, times 4 is equal to 52. So that's right. So she made 91 cupcakes in total. Okay, so let's have a look at our next question, question number 13. So question number 13 says, in a sale, a shop reduces all prices by a sixth. So all the prices have been reduced by a sixth. So if they've been reduced by a sixth, that means that everyone's paying 5/6 of the full price, because the full price, I suppose, would be 6/6. And if you're reducing the price by a sixth, you'd be left with 5/6. So we'll come back to that in a second. And Ibrahim bought a hat for £35. So Ibrahim bought a hat and it cost £35. And we've been asked to work out the original price of the hat. So the original price of the hat. So if we let this be the original price of the hat, we know that Ibrahim bought the hat for £35 and that all the prices have been reduced by a sixth. So that means that 5/6 of the full price, the normal price, would be equal to £35, because he's paid 5/6 of the price, because the price has been reduced by a sixth. So 5/6 of the normal price is equal to £35, because that's what he paid for it. So normally, if we knew this amount, we would divide by the bottom and times by the top, and the answer would be 35. So let's work backwards. Let's take the 35 and divide by the top. So 35 divided by 5 is equal to 7. And then if we take our 7 and times by the bottom, 7 times 6 is equal to 42. So that means that the hat would normally cost £42. And let's just check that. If the hat was £42 and the shop reduces the price by a sixth, well, a sixth of 42 is equal to 7. And if you take away that £7, you're left with £35. So that would be how much Ibrahim bought the hat for, £35. So that's it. So we've been asked to work out the original price of the hat. The answer would be £42. £42, that's the original price of the hat. And that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 14. So question number 14 says, a water bottle is 3/8 full. So it's 3/8 full. And Cody pours 400 millilitres of water into the bottle, and the bottle is now full. And the question says, how much water does the bottle hold? So we want to work out how much water this bottle holds. Now we were told it was 3/8 full to begin with, and then he's poured 400 millilitres into the bottle and it's now full. So let's consider this 3/8. The bottle was 3/8 full to begin with. So if we had this bottle, I'm just going to do a really bad sketch. If we had this bottle, it would be 3/8 full. So this is 3/8 full. And then some water is poured in. So 400 millilitres of water is poured in. So 400 millilitres of water. And the bottle is now full. Well, I want to work out what fraction of the bottle this is, this 400 millilitres. Now let's consider the bottle. The bottle will contain 8/8 whenever it's full, because it'll be full, 8/8. And if we take away the 3/8, that'll tell us what fraction of the bottle this 400 millilitres is. So if 8/8 take away 3/8 would be equal to 5/8. So this 400 millilitres is 5/8 of the bottle. And that makes sense because it had 3/8 to begin with. It had 400 millilitres poured in and it's now full. So the 400 millilitres would be 5/8 of the bottle, the rest of the bottle. So I know that 5/8 of the whole bottle, 5/8 of the whole bottle, how much it contains, would be equal to 400 millilitres. And normally we would take this amount, we would divide it by 8, and then we would times it by 5, and we've got 400. So let's work backwards. Let's take our 400 and let's divide it by the top. So we're going to divide by 5. That's equal to 80. And then times by the bottom, 80 times 8 is equal to, 8 times 8 is 64, so that'll be 640. So 640 millilitres. So 640 millilitres, that's how much the bottle contains, the whole bottle. So the whole bottle contains 640 millilitres. And let's just check that. Well, we knew that 400 millilitres was poured into the bottle, and that because it was already 3/8 full, and because that 400 millilitres fills the bottle, that is 5/8 5/8 of the bottle, and that means that 5/8 of the grand total will be equal to 400. And if we take 640 and we divide that by 8, that's equal to 80, and then times by 5 is equal to 80 times 5 is 400. So that'll be the 400 millilitres there. So we're right. So the whole bottle contains 640 millilitres. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 15. So question number 15 says, I'm thinking of a number. So we've got this number, and that 2/5 of the number is 20. So 2/5 of this number is equal to 20. And then the question says to work out 2.5 times the number. So let's work out what the number is to begin with before we times it by 2.5. So 2/5 of what number is equal to 20? So if we knew the number, we would divide it by 5 and then times it by 2, and the answer would be 20. So if we take our 20 and we divide it by 2, that's equal to 10. And then if we times by 5, that's equal to 50. So this number must be 50. And 2/5 of 50 is 20. So that means the number I started with is 50. And then the question says to work out 2.5 times the number. If we take our 50, if we times it by 2, that's equal to 100. So that's 2 times the number. And then let's do a half of the number. So 50 times a half, or half of 50, is equal to 25. So 2.5 times 50 would be equal to, if we add those together, 125. And let's just think about it. 2.5 times the number, that'll be doubling it, which is 100. And then another half of it, which would be 25. And adding them together would be 125. And that's it. So 2.5 times the number will be 125. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 16. So question number 16 says the students in year 10 and 11 are asked to complete a survey. And there's 180 students in year 10. And that 3/10 of the year 10 students complete the survey. So if we work out 3/10 of 180, we can work out how many year 10s complete the survey. And that 2/9 of the students in year 11 complete the survey. So 2/9 of the number of students in year 11, which we don't know yet. And we're then told the same number of students in both year groups complete the survey. Work out how many students there are in year 11. Okay, so we're told that the same number of students in both year groups complete the survey. So let's work out how many year 10s complete the survey. So 3/10 of them complete the survey. So let's work out 3/10 of 180. So to work out 3/10 of 180, we'll take the 180, we'll divide it by the bottom, so divide by 10 is equal to 18. And then we'll times by the top, 18 times 3, and it's a calculator question, so 18 times 3 is 54. So we know that 54 year 10 students complete the survey, and that means that 54 year 11 students complete the survey because the same number complete the survey. Now, we know that 2/9 of the number of students in year 11 complete the survey, and we've been asked to work out how many students there are in year 11, so we're going backwards. We want to find out, we know that 2/9 of the number of students in year 11 is equal to 54. So we want to work backwards and figure out how many students there were. So normally, if we knew the number of students in year 11, we would divide by 9 and then times by 2, and we'd get 54. So if we work backwards, let's divide by the top. 54 divided by 2 is equal to 27, and then let's times by the bottom. 27 multiplied by 9 is equal to, and it's a calculator question, 27 times 9 is equal to 243. So there's 243 students in year 11. So the answer is 243. The answer is 243. Okay, let's look at our next question. Okay, so let's have a look at our next question, question number 17. So question number 17 says, Alison is selling homemade Christmas decorations, and she has 300 decorations that cost £2 each to make. So we want to work out how much profit she makes. I'm actually just going to take the 300 and times it by 2 to begin with to see that that's equal to £600. So they cost £600 to make. I should actually read the rest of the question first. She then sells 250 decorations at full price. So she sells 250 of them at full price. She then reduces the price of each of the decorations by a third, and she sells the remaining decorations for £6 each. And the question says, work out how much profit she made. Actually, in this question, it's a bit unusual because we are not actually told how much each of the decorations cost whenever they're full price. So in this question, what we're going to actually have to do is we want to work out, well, we know that she spent £600 making the decorations, but we need to work out how much money she made from selling them. So let's actually start off with the ones that she reduced by a third. She reduced the price by a third, and she sold those ones for £6. She sold all of the remaining decorations for £6 each. And she sold 250 at full price. That means that she sold the rest. That would be 50 at reduced price. So she sold 250 at full price, and she sold 50 at a reduced price. Now those cost £6 each, so we're going to do, for these ones, we're going to do 50 multiplied by £6, and 50 times 6 is equal to £300. So she received £300 for selling the reduced price ones, but we need to figure out how much she sold the 250 decorations at full price for. Now we're told that she reduced the price by a third, and then she sold them for £6. So we know that if she reduces the prices by a third, That means that if you reduce the price by a third, you're left with 2/3 of the price. So 2/3 of the full price is equal to £6. Because she reduced the price by a third, that means that she's left with 2/3 of the price. So 2/3 of the full price is equal to £6. Now, if we knew the full price, we would divide it by 3 and times it by 2 to get 6. So if we take our 6 and divide it by 2, work backwards, that's equal to 3, and then times by the bottom, 3 times 3 is equal to £9. So that means that she was selling them at full price for £9 each. And let's just check that. If we were selling them for £9, if we reduce the price by a third of 9 is £3, and then we're reducing it, means we're taking it away, so it's left with £6. So that means she sold these 250 decorations at £9 each, the full price. So we're going to do 250 multiplied by 9. 9 times 0 is 0. 9 times 5 is 45. Put the 5 down, carry the 4. And 9 times 2 is 18 plus 4 is 22. So that's 2,250. So she made £2,250 selling the full price decorations and £300 for the reduced price ones. So altogether, if we add them together, that'll be £2,550. Now, if we go back to the question, she spent £600 making them. So we need to take that away to work out how much profit she made. So we need to take away £600 and see what we get. So 0 take away 0 is 0. 5 take away 0 is 5. 5 take away 6, that's borrow, so that's now a 15. 15 take away 6 is 9, and then 1. So how much profit did Alison make? £1,950. That's how much profit she made for selling the decorations. And that's it. Okay, so let's have a look at our next question, question number 18. So question number 18, it's a calculator question, and we're told that Rebecca bought a bag of flour, so she got this full bag of flour, and she uses a tenth of the flour to make some pancakes, and a quarter of the flour to make some scones, and there's 780 grams of flour left in the bag. And the question says how much flour is in the full bag. Okay, so she's used some of the flour, and she's used a tenth of it to make pancakes and a quarter of it to make scones. So she's used a tenth of the total and a quarter total. So let's add those together. And it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. So we can do a tenth plus a quarter on our calculator to see what fraction of the bag of flour she's used. So a tenth plus a quarter is equal to 7/20. So that means that Rebecca has used 7/20 of the bag of flour. That means that in terms of the bag of flour, she used 7/20. The rest, which, well, if we have a full bag, that's 20/20. If we take away 7/20, that means that in the bag they'll be left with 13/20. So 13/20 of the flour is left. Now we're told that 780 grams of flour is left in the bag. So that means that 13/20 of the grand total of the total flour in the bag is equal to 780 grams. Now, if we knew the total, we would divide by the bottom and times by the top, and we get 780. But here, we're working backwards, so we're going to divide by the top and times by the bottom. So let's take the 780 and divide it by 13, and that's equal to 60. And then if we times by the bottom, 60 times 20 is equal to 1,200. So that means there's 1,200 grams of flour in the bag. So there's 1,200 grams of flour in the full bag. And that's it. Or you could have written 1.2 kilograms. Either one of those would be fine. And that's it. So how much flour is in the bag? 1,200 grams or 1.2 kilograms. Okay, so let's have a look at our next question. So question number 19, it's a non-calculator question. So put the calculator down. And we're told that Barnaby's got a bag of yellow, green and pink counters. And we're told that 2/5 of the counters are yellow, a third of the counters are green, and that there's 48 pink counters in the bag. And the question says how many green counters are there in the bag. So what we're going to do here is, well, we know that there's 48 pink counters in the bag. It'd be fantastic if we knew what fraction of the counters were pink, because then if we knew what fraction of the counters were pink, we could then work out how many counters there are in the bag altogether, and then we can work out how many green counters there are. So let's add together these two fractions. Let's work out 2/5 plus 1/3. And if we add those two fractions together, that'll tell us the fraction of the counters that are yellow and green, and then we'll know the rest of them are pink. So 2/5 plus a third, well, we need a common denominator. So if we've got 5 and 3, a good number to choose would be 15. That'd be a good common denominator. It's a common multiple of 5 and 3. To get from 5 to 15, we times by 3. So let's multiply the numerator by 3. So that's going to be 6. So that's equal to 6/15. So 2/5, an equivalent fraction would be 6/15. And to get from 3 to 15, we times by 5. So let's multiply the numerator by 5. So that'll be 5. So a third is the same as 5/15. And 6/15 plus 5/15 would be equal to 11/15. So that means that 11/15 of the counters in the bag are yellow and green. That means the rest of them must be pink because it only contains yellow, green and pink counters. So the bag would contain 15 fifteenths to begin with, it would be full. And we're going to take away 11 fifteenths, and that's equal to 4 fifteenths. So that means that 4 fifteenths of the counters in the bag are pink. So that means that 4 fifteenths of the total is equal to 48. So let's work out how many counters in the bag. Because if we knew the number of counters in the bag, we would divide by the bottom and times by the top. So we're going to take the answer and divide it by the top and times by the bottom. So 48 divided by 4 is equal to 12. And then we're going to take the 12 and we're going to times it by 15. And this is an on-calculator question. So we're going to do 15 multiplied by 12 and see what we get. Okay, so 2 times 5 is equal to 10. So put a 0 down, carry a 1. 2 times 1 is equal to 2, plus 1 is equal to 3. So 2 times 15 is equal to 30. Now we're going to times 15 by 10, so put a 0 down. 1 times 5 is equal to 5, and 1 times 1 is equal to 1. And then if we add those together, we get that's equal to, if we add those together, 0 plus 0 is equal to 0, 3 plus 5 is equal to 8, and then we've just got our 1. So it's going to be 180. So there were 180 counters in the bag to begin with. Now the question is, how many of the counters are green? So we're told that a third of the counters are green. So we need to work out a third of 180. So we're going to do one third of 180. And that's equal to, well, a third of 18 is 6. So a third of 180 would be 60. And that's it. So the answer is 60. So there's 60 green counters in the bag. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 20. So question number 20 says, at 2 p.m. a stadium is a sixth full of fans. So it's a sixth full of fans. So it means it's a sixth full and 5/6 not full. By 3 p.m. an additional 6,500 fans have entered the stadium, and the stadium is now 3/5 full. And the question says, work out the total capacity of the stadium. Okay, so in terms of this question, well, we know that it's a sixth full of fans at 2 o'clock, and by 3 o'clock it's 3/5 full. So if we take those away, if we take the 1/6 away from 3/5, we can work out what fraction of the stadium has been filled between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. So we're going to do 3/5 subtract 1/6. And then whenever we do that, that'll tell us what fraction of the stadium has been filled between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And we know that will be 6,500 fans. So let's do this. So it's a calculator question. That's quite nice. So we can get our calculator and do 3/5 subtract 1/6. And when we do that, we get an answer of 13 over 30, or 13/30. So that means between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, 13/30 of the stadium fills up. And that is 6,500 fans. So that means that 13/30 of the entire capacity of the stadium is equal to 6,500. So if we knew the total, we would divide it by 30 and then get a 30th and then times it by 13, and that'll be 6,500. So let's work backwards. Let's take our 6,500 and divide it by 13, and then that's equal to 500. And then we're going to multiply by the denominator. So we're going to do 500 multiplied by 30, and that's equal to 15,000. So that means the total capacity of the stadium is 15,000. So that means the total capacity of the stadium is 15,000 fans. Let's write that down, 15,000. And that's it. So just to recap, in this question, we were told at 2 o'clock the stadium was a sixth full, and by 3 o'clock the stadium was 3/5 full. So we took those away to find out what fraction of the stadium was filled between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. That was 13/30, and we knew that was equal to 6,500 fans. So then we just divided that by 13 and times that by 30 to find out what the original would have been, or what the total capacity would be, which is 15,000. Okay, let's have a look at our last question, question number 21. So question number 21 says, 2 flights leave an airport, one flying to Edinburgh and the other one to Liverpool. And there's 20 less passengers on the flight to Edinburgh than the flight to Liverpool. So there's 20 less people on the flight to Edinburgh than to Liverpool. And on the flight to Edinburgh, 3/5 of the passengers check in a hold bag. And on the flight to Liverpool, 5/8 of the passengers check in a hold bag. And then we're told the same number of passengers for each flight check in a hold bag. And the question says, work out how many passengers in total checked in a hold bag. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this question to begin with, I'm going to let the number of passengers on the Liverpool flight be called Y, because that's what I'm going to let. I'm going to let it be Y. That's the total number of passengers on that flight. And then because there's 20 less passengers on the flight to Edinburgh, that'll be Y subtract 20, because there's 20 less than the flight to Liverpool. And then we're told, on the flight to Edinburgh, 3/4 of the passengers check in a whole bag. So that means that 3/4 of this amount, this y subtract 20, check in a whole bag. And on the flight to Liverpool, 5/8 of the passengers, so 5/8 of y, check in a whole bag. And then we're told that the same number of passengers on each flight check in a whole bag. So that means that they'll be equal to each other. So that means that 3/4 of y subtract 20 would be equal to 5/8 of y, because the same number of passengers check in a whole bag. We know on the Edinburgh flight there's y minus 20 people, and 3/4 of that would be 3/4 of y minus 20. And on the flight to Liverpool there's y people, y passengers, and 5/8 of them check in a whole bag. And we know that the number of passengers that check in a whole bag is the same for both flights, so we can put them equal to each other. So we now just need to solve this equation. So let's expand our brackets. So 3/4 of y, subtract, and then multiply 20 by 3/4, or work out 3/4 of 20. It's a calculator question anyway. That's equal to 15, or we could just do 3/4 of 20 is 15, and that's equal to 5/8 of y. Okay, now whenever we're solving an equation like this, we want to bring all the y's to one side and all the numbers to the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 15 to both sides. So I'm going to add 15 to the left hand side and add 15 to the right hand side. So the left hand side would just become 3/4 y, and then on the right hand side we would have 5/8 y plus 15. Okay, now we want to have all the y's on one side, so we don't want this 5/8 y here, so we're going to take away 5/8 y and take away 5/8 y. 5/8 y. So on the right hand side we'd just be left with 15, and on the left hand side we have 3/4 y. We're taking away 5/8 y, so if we just do in our calculator 3/4 subtract 5/8, that's equal to 1/8. So 1/8 of y is equal to 15. Okay, now we want to solve this equation, so we want to find out what y is. We could divide both sides by an eighth, so we could do this divided by an eighth and this divided by an eighth, and you get that y is equal to 120. Or in this case, if we've got an eighth of y, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 8, because that would mean that instead of having an eighth of y, we would just have y. So an eighth of y times 8 would be y, and 15 times 8 would be 120. So here you could multiply both sides by 8 to get rid of this eighth here, or you could divide both sides of the equation by an eighth, and that would give you y is equal to 120 as well. So that means that, and on the flight to Edinburgh there would be y minus 20, 20 less, that'll be 100. So there's 100 passengers on the Edinburgh flight, and there's 120 passengers on the Liverpool flight. Now the question says, work out how many passengers checked in a hold bag. So in terms of the Edinburgh flight, 3/4 of them checked in a whole bag, so we need to do 3/4 of 100. So 3/4 of 100, and that's easy, that's equal to 75. Just dividing it by 4 is 25, and times it by 3. So that's 75 people on the Edinburgh flight checked in a whole bag. And then in terms of the Liverpool flight, it should be the same because we're told it's the same, but let's just check it. Let's work out 5/8 of 120. So 5/8 of 120. If we take our 120 and divide that by the bottom, 8, that's equal to 15, times 5 is equal to 75. And then the question says, work out how many passengers in total checked in a whole bag. So we just need to add them together, and 75 plus 75 is 150. So the answer is 150, and that's it. And that's it. So these have been the video solutions to the practice questions on fractions, and in particular finding the original amount if you know a fraction of an amount. And in this video, if you need any extra help on this topic, go to the videos and worksheets section and scroll down to video number 138. Alternatively, scan this QR code. But in this video, we focused on the video solutions to the practice questions. I really hope you found it useful. If you have found it useful, please like the video and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.